walked in the house one time and there was another showing there and it was a big family and like there was one dude laying on the couch.
That would be me.
I was like, what is going on right now? Like, dude, you're just like taking a nap while there's your family that looks at the house. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
It was very weird, right? But no, staging, I mean...
Welcome to the Rains Report with your host, Jason Rains.
Welcome, you guys. Another episode, another podcast of the Rains Report. We are here this week. This one is geared more towards those in the industry. So if you're new to this, you guys subscribe to the podcast. We drop a new podcast every Friday. We go back and forth between 1 week. We kind of focus on buyers and sellers in the market. And the next week, it's more for industry people, right? And then we take the same podcast. So if you're listening to it on podcast, maybe you want to watch it, maybe you want to see us in person, you can do that on Saturdays on the YouTube channel, which is Your KC Seller, right? So you can listen on Friday, you can watch on Saturday. Either way, it's a win-win, right? No, but seriously, guys, if you could subscribe, hit that notification bell, whatever it is for YouTube. Leave us questions, leave us a review, all that jazz. We love it. But like I said, this week before we get into it, really before we get into it, Jason Rains, Remax Elite Realtors, Your KC Seller, here in studio with my boy Luke today. And
my name.
Just talking. Today is focused more on industry people, and we are going to talk about staging. Mm-hmm. Staging, right? And I got a little story about staging too. So I don't know if we want to start with that though.
No.
We want to start with that.
Let's leave them. Let's dangle the carrot.
Yeah. So here we go. Let's get to it. All right, guys, here we go. We're getting into it. We're talking about staging today. Should you stage? Should you not stage? Who do you use to stage? What are the advantages of staging? Right?
Whose wife's a stager?
Whose wife's a stager?
I don't know.
My wife?
Is that your wife?
Well, I mean, that's part of her business. She does do stage. She does other stuff too, but
okay. She
does stage homes as well. So staging one right now as we're recording this.
Hey, yo.
In fact.
Nice.
Yeah. Here in the Johnson County, Kansas area.
Hey, yo.
Hey, right?
That comes at a certain price point.
What's that?
Comes with a certain price point there. Joko.
That home is $1 million.
Yes, sir.
So complete remodeled home.
Yeah.
So the kitchen island, how long would you, if you had to guess, how long would you say that kitchen island is?
Judging by your face right now,
yeah.
36 feet.
36 feet.
Mm-hmm. I'm going high.
Not quite that big. 15 though. That's a big island, right? 15 feet long. So yeah. But no, I think, we talk about what we can do to set homes apart, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked a little bit about staging in the past, earlier on some of our earlier videos before we were doing podcast stuff. So they'd have to, like, this was probably covered in what we call the Talking Head YouTube video at one point, right? Yes. And we talked about staging. So probably in a restaurant in downtown Lee Summit, probably Bricks, if I were to guess, sitting there. We tend to frequent that one.
Highly likely.
We did a few videos in that great restaurant. It is a great restaurant. But anyway, so yeah, when we talk about setting listings apart, right, and what we can do, I think that besides your normal things you think of like minor repairs and touching up paint, carpet, and things like that, I think staging is probably more important than even some of the small repairs that you could do.
That makes sense.
So, and I think that because not that you're trying to hide anything, I'm not saying that, but like staging just takes the buyer's attention off of some of those minor imperfections.
Yeah.
And they overlook them because they're so focused on not necessarily like, oh my gosh, that's a really nice couch. I'm not saying that, but it's like, they're just taking it all in, and a lot of the public has a hard time visualizing spaces, right? Like if you walk into an empty room, are you thinking, oh yeah, I could put my couch here, I could put it there, Or are you thinking, man, I don't even know if my couch would fit in this room, right? Like, how would I utilize this room? Where would I put stuff? Like, I feel like that's where most of the population is on that end of not knowing if either A, something would fit, B, how they'd utilize this room, 3, everything. 3, like where they would put it if they did put it in the room, right? And when you stage the properties, you're kind of giving them a visualization of what's possible,
especially in an open concept. Like, I don't know. It's nice to walk into a big house and see that it's big and it's open concept. The living room feeds into the kitchen, but I would have a hard time placing furniture in that if I walked into it. So it's nice to see those when they are staged.
Yeah, placing furniture, and then if it's not open concept, does your stuff fit into a room, right?
Yeah.
Like, is my king size bed going to fit in this bedroom? I mean, the bedroom could be huge, and people still think, man, I don't know if it might be tight with my furniture in here. And like literally, it's like the biggest bedroom we've ever seen.
Yeah,
and they're still questioning that, right?
True.
Like it's crazy. It's the trick, if you will, that the mind plays on people when they're in empty spaces, right? But you stage the place or stage the home, even if you don't stage the entire property, right? Like I know my wife, for example, she'll recommend the main living space on the main floor, the dining room if there's a dining room, the kitchen, eating kitchen if it's eating kitchen, bar stools, decor in all those places, the main floor bathroom typically, like a piece of art, some, whatever on the counter.
Yeah.
And then the main bedroom, whether that's on the master bedroom, whether it's on the main floor or upstairs, doing that bedroom. You can and the master bathroom, you can expand past that, but those are your main areas that really give people a sense of what the home is like and what it's like to live there. And really, once you've made that first impression of, hey, they walk in, the main floor is done. Like once that first impression is done, like that's what you're really trying to generate by staging the home, is just that first impression of, oh my gosh, like, wow. Now, granted, you got to use a stager that's not using shit furniture, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're not creating a good first impression. Then you're creating man, there's some shitty furniture up in here, right? Like, oh man, what's going on?
I have to add 2
right?
beeps now.
Why? We can't cuss on podcast and you too? Sure we can.
I can mark it explicit. Yeah. This one's for the bros.
We mark it not for kids.
That's true.
We're good.
On YouTube, not for kids.
Yeah.
On the podcast networks, I'm going to mark this one E.
I don't think
so. Like a rap album.
I think we'll be good.
Let's go.
Let's catch people by surprise.
But so you're
anyway, back to it.
You're right though, because that's the curb appeal aspect of it. When
that's like the interior curb appeal,
the first thing you see.
Right?
The interior curb appeal is you walk in normally to a living space.
Yeah.
And so it's great to see, there's decor already in here. I can see what it looks like. It's depersonalized, right?
Yep.
Just because it's not family portraits.
I mean, I've seen staged houses that have random family photos in them.
You need to start doing it, because I think it's the funniest thing ever. A couple of people, when they do staging, they'll put up like portraits of like celebrities as if they're family portraits.
I've
it's
seen
like a picture of Chris Hemsworth and his kids.
Yeah.
And then for a split second, when people walk into the house, I just wonder if they're like, did Thor live here?
Is this his house?
This is him with his kids.
Weird. Yeah. Right. No, but I do think staging plays a big factor. I mean,
definitely.
There's statistics out there that people spend in an empty home, like we'll say an average of, I'm going to make up a number here, right? But for comparison purposes, they might spend 5 minutes in an empty home versus 25 minutes in a staged home. They just spend more time, significantly more time in a staged home than they do an empty home, right? Because it feels like home.
Yeah.
Right? They don't live in an empty house.
And you could sit and talk about it in the home.
You could, or you could not sit in furniture that's not yours.
Just don't sit on the bed because a lot of times don't sit on the bed because a lot of times they use boxes to prop them up.
Again, if real estate agents, this is directed to you. If your stager's using boxes, find a different stager. And I've seen it. Like we've all seen it, right?
All the time.
I was in a house one time up north of the river, and they called it they called it a 3-bedroom, and the 3rd bedroom was in the unfinished basement in a corner. They did put up 2 walls, but the exterior was just foundation. and the bed was like 2 milk crates with an interior door on top of them and a bedspread on top of that, like to simulate a bed.
I've slept in worse.
It was horrible. Right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of them use air mattresses, and nothing wrong with that. They're super easy to transport, right?
Just make sure
there's no holes in them.
And make sure you come in and blow them up every week or so.
Well, checking on them at least, because I've seen them. I mean, I've shown houses where I'm like, oh, that sucks. Their mattress deflated. And I shoot the listing agent a quick text and let them know, right?
Yeah.
Or use real mattresses and real box springs. I mean, it's more work, but it looks better. That's how we live, right? I mean, some people probably sleep on air mattress, and that's fine. No judging. But I think that I know stagers, at least good stagers, don't really like their furniture being sat on, right? Because think about it, it messes it up, right? If you have a throw over the corner and some pillows the right way, and somebody sits on, and now it's all jacked up, and it doesn't look quote unquote perfect after that, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I know she's told me stories before. She comes home, she's like, oh my gosh, I went to D-Stage and like the pillows were everywhere on the couch. Like, how long had it been like that? Like, had it been like that for 3 weeks? Like, not the impression that you're wanting made on your property, right?
Yeah.
Like, but again, I know people do sit on the furniture. Like, it happens. Just, put it this way: if you're a buyer's agent and you're in a house, you can tell it's staged. Maybe tell your people don't sit on the furniture. How about that?
That's true.
Have your
nobody's there to tell me not to, though, because all I'm doing is taking
honestly,
photos of them.
do you want to have that conversation in the house? Like, do you want to be talking about the house and having a conversation in the house, not knowing if there's a camera in there?
Ooh.
I mean, we're supposed to disclose interior cameras because you.
Are you?
You're supposed to, because you have an expectation of privacy inside a home, right?
Yeah.
So, if we have a listing and there's interior cameras, we're supposed to disclose that in the listing. Interior cameras present, video and audio may be watched and listened to, right?
Yeah.
May or may not be. I wouldn't want to take that chance.
No.
You're kind of playing your hand if you're talking about offer strategy.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want the other side hearing that. Oh my gosh, we really, really love this house. And then you come in, they're like, well, if you really love it, you can pay this much more.
They just chime in right there.
Yeah. Outside, you don't have to disclose Ring doorbells. I mean, everybody knows what Ring doorbells are these days, right? Or variations of Ring doorbells, other brands, whatnot. So, and you're outside, so there is no expectation of privacy outside. But again, do you want to have that conversation right in front of the Ring doorbell camera?
Probably not.
This house sucked. We're not offering all that. Like, no, you don't want to say that.
Unless you're bluffing.
Yeah. I guess, well, they're going to find out, aren't they? So, I mean, I would say if you're a buyer's agent, never have that conversation in the home.
Yeah.
Like, walk around the home and then go out to the car, sit in the car, get in the car, call them. Like,
yeah, true.
Don't even have that conversation around the property. And if there's multiple showings, now there's other people listening to your conversation at the same time you're trying to have it. Again, you're playing your hand.
People must have known that already, because when we sold our house, we had that Nest doorbell camera, and I was trying to hear a little something. And nobody would give me anything.
Right. So you were listening.
Just wanted one person walking out that's like, I hated this or I liked this, but nobody would do it.
Yeah. Right. So, I think from an agent perspective, maybe just suggest they don't sit on the furniture if it's staged. Well, even if it's not staged and it's just an occupied house, like, you don't know the people.
Don't even chill there.
Yeah. Just, I don't know, kind of weird.
Like, don't make a hot pocket.
I mean, I walked in a house one time and there was another showing there, and it was a big family, and like there was one dude laying on the couch.
That would be me.
I was like, what is going on right now? Like, dude, you're just like taking a nap while the rest of your family looks at the house. Like, that's weird.
Yeah.
It was very weird, right? But staging, I mean, I would say look at it as, and this is like, it's easier for me to talk about because my wife's been doing it for several years, but I think that, I mean, I still have to talk to my clients about it too, right? And suggest it. It needs to be looked at from an investment standpoint, right?
Yeah. Again,
we talked about the statistics about how buyers stay in houses longer that are staged versus empty. same goes with price. Staged houses historically bring higher offers than empty houses. There's just a different feeling. And if people have a emotional connection for whatever reason, and that could be just the house was staged and it made them feel like home, they're going to be willing to offer more money, right? So they stay in longer, they offer more money. So yes, there is a cost associated with staging, and that varies based on the property, based on a lot of factors, right? How long is it staged for? All that stuff. Is that investment worth it? I would tend to say yes.
Yeah, so, and you might even.
I know my wife would agree, but
as an agent, you might even set a price point. Above this price point, I'm going to stage homes.
Yeah.
Above, know, there's probably.
Yeah. Or I'm going to recommend. I know, and again, everyone's business model is different. I know some agents in other states that include that. They charge.
Yeah.
Well, I say they include. They charge a higher commission and then include staging, right? I never want to stage I would never stage my own house. I know there's agents out there that do it, right? I'm not a designer.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of stuff just because I'm with my wife when she's talking and meeting with people, or I'll swing by her stages and check them out. But like that's not my job. I'm focused on selling the house.
I don't listen to my wife,
right? Well, I'm focused on selling the house. I'm not. Yeah. I'm like. My time is not well spent
Different
for you
mindsets. Yeah.
Putting couches and chairs and rugs and lamps and decor in a house, right?
Yeah.
And then, but I know some agents that do, and you can tell their inventory is not great. Like where do they keep that? Just in their garage or in their basement, like versus a warehouse somewhere, and they have a lot of stuff, right? So it just, I mean, I don't know. Again, we as agents tell people to use us because we're professionals, right? Don't sell your house for sale by owner. Use a professional. But yet we tell that, and I say we because I'm just generalizing here. I could say you, and just talking to you buyer's agent or you listing. We tell for sale by owners to use a professional and let you list their house or use you to represent them on the buy side. But then there's agents that literally turn right around and stage the house themselves, take their own pictures with their cell phone. Like, so we're literally telling people to use professionals so we get business, but then we don't use professionals to do the job that they're the best at.
Well, and
so why does it not go both ways?
So for me, that's one thing you could do for yourself, Mr. Agent. Know before you go into the listing presentation if you're going to offer these to your client, right? Because that's always helpful to tell them, I'm going to get your house staged. So, or
even suggest them staging. Hey, I work with a stager, and if you're not going to pay for it yourself, which I don't pay for it myself, right? Yeah. Typically, the homeowner, my homeowner pays for it, right? Yep. It's an investment in their property. Yeah. It brings them more money. It helps them sell their house faster, right? Yeah. Again, maybe if I switch up business models and I charged a higher commission, I might. But again, I'm still not doing it myself. I don't have the inventory. Yeah. I don't have the knowledge, the proper professional knowledge on how to play stuff. Like I don't do market research and watch all the trends. And again, that's what professionals do. Pay the professional to do that, right? I mean, I guess I could take the difference on the higher commission and pay it to the professional. Yeah. Or the homeowner could just pay the professional. Yeah. Right? I mean, whatever.
But it's just know before you go to that.
Yeah. What are you going to be offering? What are you going to offer? What are you going to suggest? Yeah. I know there's some stagers and designers that will come in and just tell them what to do and just charge them an hourly rate and say, hey, do this, do this, do this, and then leave. And it's the homeowner's responsibility to do that, right?
Oh, yeah, we see that a lot because we do the photos and the videos, right? We come into houses after those people, and a lot of times they're telling us, this person came in and told us to move this around. Yeah. And it's just, so that's, that person would go into a resale that's already furnished and say, hey,
that's more on an occupied listing where the homeowner's still living there, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think that you should leave that to the professional. Yeah. Just like we tell for sale by owners, leave it to the professional. We'll get your house sold for what? More money. We'll get your house sold faster. Literally the exact same thing that the professional photographer and stager do, but yet for some reason agents don't want to use the professionals. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot do, right? Like, but there are some out there that don't, and they're the same ones telling the buyers and sellers to use them because they're professional.
Yeah, they don't, or they don't know, or because that's my big thing for this. They don't know to bring it to their listing presentations. We stress that pretty often as a photographer and somebody who does video walkthroughs, things like that. That's one thing we always stress with the agents.
I don't necessarily bring it to my listing presentations either. I just tell them I'm going to use a professional. Yeah, I cover the expense on pictures. Like, I don't pass that cost on onto my client. That's to me, that's a marketing cost. Yeah. I guess staging could be viewed kind of marketing-ish. Well, I mean, again, depends how gray we want to get, right? But I don't know. I've just always paid for the video and the pictures myself. So I'm sure there's some out there that say, hey, you need to, if this happens, then you're going to pay for the marketing aspect. I mean, or if it's, a multi-million-dollar home and we set a marketing budget, how much do you want to contribute to that? Sure, that's a different story. That's got to be tough
when it's not that price point, though, right? You can't walk into $250,000 listing and say, "I need you to fork over some money for this marketing."
Yeah, probably not.
That probably doesn't happen very often.
Just pay for it. Yeah,
I would assume so. I don't know.
Yeah. But there's crazy stuff that happens in staging too, right? I mean, we were talking before this started. My wife went to destage a property yesterday in a decent part of town. I mean, there's not great parts, not super far from where she was, but this specific neighborhood was fairly nice. And got there and the front door was slightly ajar, open, if you will.
It was already destaged.
And it had been destaged for her, so to speak. I mean, they literally took everything. Everything. They didn't take the dining room table because they probably didn't have an Allen wrench to take it apart and it didn't fit through the door. So the dining table is still there. The bed frames were still there, but the mattresses and box springs were gone. All the bedding was gone. All the art in the entire house was gone. All the decor, the couch, the rug, the coffee table, the end table. I mean, literally they left the dining table. They stacked up chairs in the dining room. I probably to come back for later. Yeah, they probably ran out of room, man. That's a lot of furniture. Yeah, right. They literally just they'd even pulled the stove out. It was a flip, so it had been a remodeled house, and they'd pulled the stove out like to come back and take the stove later. Yeah, like they simply ran out of room, right? Yeah. So I mean, there are crazy things that happen, but that's part of anything. You know what I mean? True. Like, you could have an occupied listing and someone could break in and while you're trying to sell the house and steal stuff. Yeah. I mean, luckily they didn't cause much damage to the house. They cut the line to the water heater. Didn't take the water heater, just cut the line. Again, probably going to come back for it. A couple scratches on the hardwood floors. And really that's it. And we think maybe the door wasn't locked all the way and they were able to, because there really wasn't even that much damage on the door from where they went in. So I think maybe the deadbolt wasn't locked all the way and they just gave it a little shovey shove and it popped right open. So
that's why we lock houses.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, stuff can go missing. I mean, anything can happen at any point in time. I mean, it's real estate. We already know anything can happen, right? Yeah. But I would say the other thing, and again, yes, this is more focused on listing agents. This one specifically, since we're talking about staging, but knowing that the public might listen in on this one too. I mean, anybody can listen to these podcasts, right? Cost comes into it a lot, right? Like, oh, how much does staging cost, right? I think that part of that is the experience of the stager. I think that part of it is the level of inventory being used, right? Is the stager using stuff from Walmart or their own house? Yeah. Or are they using like name brand, like high-end stuff, right? So I think that plays part of it. I mean, I know, I don't know of anyone here really locally in Kansas City, but I know there's stagers out there in the U.S. that charge 1% of list price. So if the house is $500,000, it's $5,000 to stage. If it's $1 million, it's $10,000 to stage.
Kind of makes sense.
Right? Like
you got to assume higher value means more square footage.
More square footage. You need to bring in more stuff.
That makes sense.
You're dealing with buyers that are in those price points accustomed to nicer things. So then you need to use the quality of the stuff needs to match the quality of the listing. Right? I mean, it can be higher, but you can't put lower in. You can't put stuff from $100,000 house into a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
If you want to put stuff from a $500,000 house into a $100,000 house, sure, go for it, right? But you can't go down. You can only go up, right?
Yeah.
So, you look at it from, let's say it was $3,000 or $3,500 to stage a property, right? Is that going to be 30 days or 60 days? Does that last through the inspection and through the appraisal? I would say it probably should, right? Again, you're taking attention away from some of the minor defects, right?
Yeah.
Again, the same concept applies to the inspector and the appraiser as it did to the buyer. They're not going to be they might overlook some of the small imperfections too, because it's a staged property, right? Yeah. Again, what's the perceived value to the appraiser? I know they're only supposed to look at comps, but you can't tell me that they aren't in some context affected by the finishings of the home when they're giving it value, right? So how long does it stay there, right? So is it 2,500? Is it 2,000? Is it 3,000? Is it 3,500? Right? It's probably somewhere in that range if you're in the Kansas City area. If you're below, I'd say 1,500. That's really low. You're probably looking at limited items being brought in. You're looking at lower quality stuff. Like if you're talking like higher end stuff, nicer quality, really like a full on, like it looks good. You're probably looking at 25, $3,000. Again, it could go up higher than that. If it's a really nice house, it might be 3,500 to $5,000. But when you look at that and somebody might be like, man, that's really expensive. What does it bring you on the back end? Do you gain that money back and sell your house faster? If you do, then you have to no brainer, right? Like if you're going to make if it's 100% return on investment and you sell the house faster, why wouldn't you do it? Or maybe you make even more money and sell the house faster, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing to think of is, okay, what is the cost associated with all of that stuff? Not even the time aspect of the stager, right? And this is more so like we're going over this so listing agents, if these questions are brought up by their sellers, like they can use this information to pass on to their seller and kind of like just give them more to think about, right? Yeah. So if it's a vacant staging, I mean, the cost of the furniture stolen, like I just told the story about my wife they destaged the house for us. She added everything up. Retail value on everything was over $8,000, right? So is $3,000 investment? Is $3,500 investment? Is $5,000 investment? Sure, but if you're comparatively looking at the cost of the items being used are between $8,000 and $10,000, maybe even more, depending on how much is brought in. Do you want to go spend $10,000 just to bring in the furniture? And then what do you do with it when it's done? Resell it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if you're the seller,
I guess,
what are you going to do with furniture at that point, right? Maybe you've already moved and all your stuff's at your new house. Yeah. Now what are you going to do with $10,000 for the furniture? All your stuff's at your new house, right? Yeah. True. What do you do with it? Resell. Or just pay a professional. Yeah. A fraction of that, and they bring it all in. They set it all up. They take it out. They store it all. You don't have to do anything.
It's time cost.
Yeah, and the cost of time and convenience, right? There's costs associated with that too. I think we've done a podcast on that too, haven't we? It sounds familiar. Not a podcast. It was before we started podcasts.
About what?
Talking at like the cost of time and associated.
Yeah,
it rings
done a lot of them.
It rings a bell.
Yeah,
yeah. So, I think that again, just kind of
Okay, so one of the things that we've seen, and it goes to talk about staging in general, but specifically for us, is one thing that people are steering towards is like virtual staging, which we do offer. But one thing you mentioned at the beginning of this and kind of throughout this, which rings true, is that you can't supplement like walking into a house and seeing it staged.
Correct.
So we do offer that. We offer it like at a cheaper price point, obviously, but you can't supplement physical staging because people are going to walk through that house. Maybe in COVID times and stuff like that, it was more important to just like show it virtually, digitally.
Yeah, I think it has an effect. It has its place. You're going to get the same effect visually if it's real staging or virtual staging. Sometimes, depending on the quality of the virtual staging, sometimes you can be like, oh, that's definitely fake, right?
I mean,
I've seen good ones too, though.
If you look hard enough at any of it, you can tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
Because that's the other thing. It is more important if you can allot that time and money to...
So from a visual standpoint, before you enter the house, you're looking at it, you can kind of visualize, hey, if it's virtual staging, hey, this is what it looks like. If it's real staging, again, there's furniture, this is what it looks like. So I think from initial perception of just seeing it, right before you're even in the house, I think both of those are probably somewhat close to each other. Yeah. But I think that as soon as someone steps across that threshold, it's completely different at that point.
And virtual can be lost in perspective because you could almost like basically misrepresent the size of the home because you can scale virtually. Yeah. So one of the couches that you show in the living room, it might look like a big couch, and when you actually get there, you're like, that couldn't have fit in. Like the actual size of that couch could not fit in here. Yeah. So best to physically stage.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it is.
Has nothing to do with my wife being in the business, but
but hey,
do it. Hey, that's what she does. You know what I mean? Hey, I know there's agents out there that have, and don't be this agent. Like, just don't. But there's agents out there that have been like, well, that's not fair. Like, you're an agent and she does staging, and you guys are kind of on both sides. Who cares? Yeah. Like, I would say, first of all, I don't really care that's what you think, but you do it then. Yeah. Like, you go do it. You have your significant other go build a warehouse and buy all the furniture and get education on it. And I mean, there's nothing to stop anybody from doing it. Yeah. And just go do it then. If you think it's not fair. Or don't. But if you don't complain about it. Yeah. So just
like
a little
complaining if there's
just a little, I don't know.
If there's a husband and wife real estate team, that would be akin to just complaining about that.
Yeah, there's plenty of husband and wife real estate teams out there.
You can't both do this.
Yeah. Right? I don't know. People are weird. But yeah, so I think hopefully there's some information in there. And one about staging in general effects. I mean, maybe an agent's watching this and they're like, man, I've never thought about staging a house before. Yeah, that's great. Maybe they gain some insight on staging and what it takes and whatnot. Obviously, if you're on the podcast and you want some information, reach out to me. I can pass you on to somebody that does it. You guys connect, and maybe it's a good fit, maybe it's not. Yeah, whatever. There's other stagers out there as well. So, again, hopefully this was some good information. And if you have questions, drop them into the YouTube or the podcast, and we can get back to them. And that's all I got on that topic. So make sure to check out the podcast on Fridays and the YouTubes on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And until next time, have a great day.
The Rains Report is brought to you weekly by Juke Media. Look for episodes every Friday wherever you download podcasts, and remember to rate and subscribe for more content.